Hello, thank you for watching my tutorial. I've got this idea for this tutorial because I am trying to post monthly in the Art Scene challenge, and I also encourage you to take up polymer challenges because you will be forced, let's say, to try color combinations that you might not usually use in your work with polymer clay. You will have a deadline, which can be monthly, weekly, it depends on the challenge, and you make sure that in the end you will have a beautiful jewelry piece that you've made, so you can see progress in your work. As you can see, as you know, practice makes best. So I encourage you to practice as much as you can. Also, I really wanted to post this month for this challenge because I really love the Art Nouveau inspiration. I love Art Nouveau jewelry, so I thought I would really make an effort and make an Art Nouveau inspired piece. I loved also the Dragonfly idea. As a takeaway for you, I want to encourage you to use more special effects clays in your work, because I have noticed that I'm not using them very often. Still, I consider that they are wonderful for creating interesting jewelry pieces. In this tutorial I am using Opal Premo Accents, but you've got metallic clays, silver metallic, gold metallic, marble, and other special effect clays that are very interesting, and you should try working more with them, I think. So I have conditioned the clay. I have rolled it through let's say medium setting on the pasta machine. I've got 2 units of polymer clay, and I've rolled them into a thin log or a snake, and I'm using this to make the body of the dragonfly. The body and the tail of the dragonfly. When you are happy with the shape of the body and the tail, you'll have to make a little indentation for the head. And then you'll have to take small bits of polymer clay to roll tiny eyes. And if you are happy with the size of the eyes, you only have to press them into the dragonfly's head. Next, I'm taking a texture sheet. I'm using a very beautiful Lisa Pavelka Paisley texture sheet, and I decide which part of the design would fit on the dragonfly's body and part of the tail. I press the clay into the texture sheet. You can use a roller and a release agent to do this, of course. And then using a craft knife, I'm taking out the part of the design that I consider best suited for embellishing the dragonfly's body and part of the tail. I'm trying it on the dragonfly, but I'm not pressing it yet into the clay because I intend to make 4 wings, and I want to sandwich the wings between the body of the butterfly and this decoration strip. So by doing this, I'm really sure that the wings are going to stay in place. I'm using a thinner setting on the pasta machine because I want to make very thin and delicate wings. You should try different settings of the pasta machine because you will have a different effect. It depends if you want very delicate and thin wings, or if you want a more you should try this and you will know what I mean. There is a visual difference between the effect when you are using a very thin setting and a medium setting on the pasta machine. Keep in mind that you don't want the conditioned clay, the conditioned polymer clay sheet to be too thin, because while pressing it into the mold, it gets even thinner. Experiment with the clay and keep the best results. I consider that the width of the wings is a little bit too much for this project, so I'm using a cutter to trim out a little bit of the clay. And I will do this to make 4 wings. Now it's time to take the wings and press them into the butterfly's body very firmly on both sides. And I'm using the textured strip to put everything together, to fix everything very well. And I'm pressing very slightly on this textured strip. So I recommend you to wear gloves for this project in order to avoid leaving fingerprints. You can use a sculpting tool to make little retouches to your design. And I decided to use a sculpting tool, a ball sculpting tool, to make little round indentations in the textured strip, because I think at the end you will have a beautiful, a even more beautiful texture, and also because it presses the clay together, the strip into the body. And I'm doing the same for the eyes, and I'm really sure that the eyes are secured and very well fixed into the head. So this is the dragonfly. At this stage we will color it with mica powders. In fact, I decided to color it now. I am using eyeshadows because I have previously used eyeshadows for other projects, and I've got good results. So I encourage you to use eyeshadows because you might have shades of colors or even more color possibilities than you would have with the Pearlex or other mica powders. So why not explore these possibilities also? And for this project I thought that very delicate, very subtle effect of the purple colors were very well suited to the fragile, transparent, and translucent look of a dragonfly wing. And I am applying the colors with a brush because I want a very soft and subtle look. So I'm applying a very light shade of purple on the center part of the wings. And I'm using the eyeshadow applicator to color the edges with a darker purple color. To have a very beautiful definition of the wings. And I'm applying this darker purple color all around the earring, all around the wing. So we can leave the dragonfly aside. for the moment. This is another dragonfly that I made using a thicker setting on the pasta machine, and you can see that the wings are different. It depends on the result that you want. Now we are going to make two side focal beads to embellish the necklace, and I am using a round cutter. I'm cutting 4 units, and I will be using 2 units for each focal bead. So when I am doing this to make sure that I am using the same amount of clay, so I will have polymer clay beads that are consistent in size. I roll the clay into a ball, sorry. And I am using a Cameo silicone mold to texture the clay. So I put the clay inside the mold, and I am pressing it slightly to fit into the mold. I push very well the polymer clay into the mold to really have a nice impression on the clay. Next, I'm using some conditioned clay and a texture plate to texture the clay that is going to be the back of the bead. And I want to have a very nice texture on the back because you want your jewelry pieces to have a nice look on the front, but also on the back, of course. And then I press the clay from the mold into the textured clay. And then I take out the mold. And now you can see that I have a textured back for the bead. I don't have a cutter that is really the right size of this bead, but I am using this oval shaped cutter, and I will cut part of the upper part of the bead, and I will use it to cut the bottom. So even though this cutter is slightly larger than the size of my bead, I'm using parts of the cutter to cut around. And I do this, I cut around until I'm happy with the result. You want to have very nice and smooth edges. So I've made 2 beads using these steps, and I'm using a little bit of the conditioned clay to make a drop that I intend to hang on the necklace. So I roll the clay into a ball And then I'm using the sides of my hands to roll a drop. And you work on it until you're happy with the shape of the drop. You can roll it a little bit on the table. And now I'm happy with the result. And now it's time to use the black clay to make a base on which we are going to put the dragonfly. And I'm using black for the base to have a contrast between the dragonfly and the base on which it sits. I have conditioned the clay, of course. I'm folding the clay and in fact I'm going to make a log. I roll the clay into a ball and then I shape it into a log and I'm rolling it on the table. I think I've got too much clay for what I'm about to do, so I removed part of the clay and now I am flattening the log and I'm using a texture plate to texture the back, and I'm using an Art Nouveau texture to texture the front. So I'm sandwiching the clay between the two sheets, and thus I am texturing the back and the front in the same time. I press very well on the texture plate to have a very nice, to have a good impression on the clay. Once I'll put in the mica powder, I'm using silver metallic mica powder, you will be able to see the design even better. This will be the back of the pendant. I'm using my fingers to apply the silver metallic mica powder, and I'm doing the same thing on the front, and you will see the very nice texture of the Art Nouveau pattern. I decided to add just a little bit of golden metallic mica powder, little accents of golden metallic. And now I am pulling on the polymer clay just like I would do when reducing a cane. You will have distortions in the design, but the mica powder will stay in place. And I will reduce, let's say, I will pull on the clay until I will have the two until I would be able to put the two ends, to meet the two ends together, to put the two ends together. I will have them meet. And then I'm connecting the two ends. I press them firmly together. And I'm trying to model a shape that would fit with a dragonfly on top of it. So keep in mind that this is a base for the dragonfly, so normally the dragonfly should sit on top of it, so it should be slightly smaller than the dragonfly. You might need to add some mica powder, and I always love to add mica powder on the sides. On the interior edges. Now I'm checking if the design works well with the base. And when you are happy with the placing of the dragonfly on top of the base, you pass the polymer clay scraps, meaning the Opal Accent Premo polymer clay, through the pasta machine, through a thinner setting, and we are going to use the etching pearl to make smaller or larger pearls that we are going to use to embellish the base. So you put the etching tool on top of the polymer clay sheet and you roll a little bit, and then you will press the etching tool onto the base on which we want to attach the little pearls, and turn slightly until the clay is attached to the base. And you have 3 sizes for the pearls. I'm using here the larger one and the smaller one. The largest one and the smallest one. And it's up to you to decorate your base. And I decided to add a little bit of silver mica powder on top of the pearls to give them a really faux pearl look. And you can add a little bit of mica powder on the body of the dragonfly for a nicer effect. I will put some mica powder on the focal side beads, and after baking they are really beautiful, but they don't show up in the picture as much as they don't have the same effect that when you are looking them, when you are holding the jewelry piece in your hand. So even though you cannot see it in the picture, they are really, really beautiful, and they have a very nice look. I'm adding the mica powder on the sides also, and of course on the back. Just a little bit. And I will do the same with the second focal side bead. You will have flakes sticking out of the clay, but don't worry about this. After baking the pieces, you will be able to cut them off using scissors. and I'm adding a little bit of mica on the drop to add a little bit of definition to the shape. Don't forget to poke holes. You have to decide how you are going to string the pieces together, how you are going to put together the design. So I prefer to poke the holes before baking the pieces. Of course, you can do this after baking the pieces using a drilling machine or a hand drilling tool. I've made 2 drops to decide when I would put together the design which one is the best fit for this necklace. And you'll have to use liquid polymer clay to attach the dragonfly to the base. So you have to pour liquid clay underneath the wings, the tail and the head, and press the dragonfly into the base. Normally unbaked clay would stick to unbaked clay, but here we have used mica powders which could be which could I don't know, impede on the bonding of the pieces. So it's better to use liquid polymer clay, and thus you are making sure that the dragonfly is secured to the base. And I will add a hole in the bottom so that I will be able to attach the drop to the pendant. In fact, I'm making 2 holes. So I've baked the pieces. I've put them in the oven for 30 minutes according to the recommended temperature written on the polymer clay package. And now they've cooled down, and now I'm using scissors to trim off the flakes that are sticking out. I will do the same for the side beads. When you are looking at these beads under sunlight, not in the pictures, they really have an opal, a faux opal look. They are really beautiful, and I was a little bit disappointed that this would not show in the pictures. And the drop is very beautiful also. I am using a nail polishing tool to soften the rough areas. I am using this kind of tool to work on little imperfections. If you have large areas that you want to sand, you will need to use wet dry sanding paper, water, and a little bit of dishwashing liquid to sand and polish your pieces. But here I have got only minor imperfections, and I can deal with them using this nail polishing tool. I've made more beads for the necklace, but finally I decided to use only the um, the focal beads and the drop. And I hesitated between making a custom clasp using a piece made with the opal focal with the opal Premo Accents, and finally I decided to use a very nice Dragonfly metallic clasp. So I'm checking the sides, I'm checking the back, and I will use jump rings and chain to put everything together. And as I said, I will be using a Dragonfly metallic clasp for the closure. You might need to enlarge the holes. If you liked this tutorial, I encourage you to join learnpolymerclay.com, and I will be very happy to send you an inspiration ebook called Plunge into Polymer Clay. So stay tuned for more polymer clay inspiration for your work with polymer clay. I am very happy to send you my best tips and tricks, and I congratulate you if you decide to join the polymer clay tribe. Please take a look at the other video projects and take this inspiration and use it in your work with polymer clay. I strongly encourage you to go beyond just looking at the tutorials, but trying these ideas for yourself and making jewelry pieces, because it's one thing to know the theory, you have to apply it, you have to try these things, and you have to model the clay with your hands and feel the clay and decide for yourself what are the things that you like, and the shapes and the colors, and so you will be able to make unique jewelry pieces that express you and your vision. Thank you again,